the flat structure in the Danish companies and how that can affect both your job search, but also in general the work you're gonna have when you have a job in Denmark. Before I jump into that, I do want to say that if you are in Copenhagen or nearby Copenhagen, then this Friday and Saturday, there's going to be International Citizens Days that you can sign up for free. You can meet me there. Hey. But there's a lot of companies and like organizations, stuff like that, there to talk to you about job search and about culture in Denmark and like all aspects of like being new to Denmark in general. It's a yearly event, so even if you see this video a year from now or a bit less than a year from now, maybe, then there's most likely going to be another opportunity for you to join us at that event. So go into search for International Citizen Day, something like that, Copenhagen, and you should get a link where you can sign up for it. Good. So my name is Diana Lundström, and I help internationals looking for jobs in Denmark at an academic level. So if you're interested in learning more about that, jump into my channel here. There's lots of lives. There is other videos, there are shorts where I talk about these things. So back to the topic of today, which is about the flat structures in companies in Denmark. So basically, in general, Denmark is very, like, there's not a lot of hierarchy. I hate that word, by the way. That's why I use flat structure instead, because I can't seem to pronounce it right. But that means that, for one, we don't really use people's last name when we approach them or when we speak with them. We're not, some people will say that we're not as polite, but it's more, it's not about being polite or not. It's just the way that we talk to people. If we know their name, we're going to use their name, and first name at that, right? So it's a way of being closer to people, I guess. Even professors, and like, I know I've mentioned this before, that like the CEO of one of my old companies, he sometimes came and ate lunch with us at like a random lunch table, right? And we're just on a first name basis with each other. To be honest, I don't know why. My guess would be that we're such a small country, and the way that it's kind of developed over the past like maybe 50 years or something has just been that it's become more informal, um, and more collaborative as well. So don't be surprised if in school or at a job that people are not super focused on the whole like saying Mr. and Mrs. or like it, because it's just, it's a flat structure. We're looking more at people as people. So if you guys have any questions, just leave them in the chat and I'll come back to them at the end of the live. But yeah, so we don't do that. In terms of job search, this flat structure also means that you can be more direct in your approach in your job search. So basically, when we're talking about looking at people as people and not as titles, not as like, hey, you are 50 years my senior, so it's Mr. or whatever, that means that it's also easier to approach other people in a job search setting. That means that the openness, the willingness to speak with others opens up for you to be able to also reach out to hiring managers and ask them questions. One of the things that a lot of people do in Denmark is, or a lot is maybe, I think maybe 20% of job ads in Denmark, depending on the industry, depending on a lot of things, will have a phone number for you to call and ask questions, for example. And that's part of this, right? We're very approachable. And when you are networking, for example, it's totally okay to reach out to managers and ask them questions, ask them for coffee meetings. I usually say that don't reach out to actively hiring managers, so people who actually have open positions right now. and ask them for coffee meetings. That's my approach to that strategy. I know people who do it. I also know people have done it with success, but that's just my strategy for it, because I feel like it's that's a bit too aggressive in my book. But it's up to you what works for you. So that's also when we're job seeking, there's also something about testing what works and what doesn't work, because some things work in some industries and not in others. So yeah, that was like a sidetrack for this. But going back to the whole part about structure and the fact that we have a very flat structure in Denmark, that means that you can actually reach out. And it's very, very normal to have dialogue with people on different levels than you. So like having a good working relationship or a good structure, or even being friends with like your bosses or middle management or these things, and having conversations and people being open as well to that. So that's in part of the job search, right? So like reaching out is quite okay, and like having those dialogues with other people, even if they are managers, and in general also across like age gaps, it's very common. So that is quite okay. So in terms of when you're at work, when you have a job in Denmark, I want to say I'm going to answer questions at the end of the live session here. So please, if you have questions, write them in the chat, and I'll scroll through them at the end and answer them there. So basically, when you have a job, this is kind of the same thing when we're talking about. I used the example before as like our CEO came and ate lunch with us, right? There is a lot of communication across teams, across like titles, and it doesn't really matter. I think really the best way to say this is, and I think this is super important to remember in general when you are looking for a new job, when you are in Denmark in general, and with anything more or less, but especially when you're looking for jobs or when you're in a job where there's a lot of like levels, remember that people are people. Like the same with celebrities, they are people. And yes, some people act like shit. I'm sorry for the language, but some people act really rude. Some people don't respect others. But whether they are CEOs or celebrities or you, I don't hope that you do that, but everybody can be that way. Usually when people get famous, or it's just their traits getting amplified, right? So just a really good trick for this is don't get scared because people have a certain title. Reach out to them, because in Denmark, most people are actually really open to connecting, to helping, to give information. Just don't ask them if they have a job for you directly. That's an approach that can be have like kind of the opposite effect. So, but when you're in a team, when you're working in a workplace in Denmark, you have a lot of teamwork as well, where it's like, oh, we're going to put a team together that is based on merit and based on interest and not titles. So you might work together with the CFO and a supervisor and a project manager, and that's a great team because they have the same interest or something like that. So it's just this structure also makes it open to kind of create the best teams, because we're looking at what are the best people for that specific job and not the title. This is also going back to the job search part. What makes it interesting when we are looking for jobs, that we want to show the company that we're applying for jobs in, what is our work interest, what is our experience, and how can we create value with that experience in terms of what the company is looking for. Because that means that even though you might have a different profile where it's like, oh, it's not quite the job title they were looking for, or you maybe were a little bit overqualified, some would say. But if you can do a really good job at explaining how you can actually create that value to them, that will still make you interesting, right? Okay, and then the last thing that I want to say in terms of the flat structure thing in companies here is that it also means that you're taking serious. So when you show, you're expected to, and we hope that you will take initiative. So at a meeting, for example, we expect you to say something. So kind of, if you see something, say something. That's like related to crime, I guess, somewhere. But point being the same, that in a company, if you see that you might have a better idea or something that you think is a better idea, then we expect you to share it, because maybe it is a better idea. Maybe there's something we didn't look at, right? So speak up when you have ideas, when you have some comments to something that you don't understand. It's okay to ask questions. I absolutely freaking love when people ask questions, because that shows me that people are willing to learn. And from my point of view, I almost want to say there's no stupid questions, but usually questions, if I'm explaining something to, this is how I work with my clients as well. I know that I have a lot of knowledge on my within my expertise, and for me it's like, though everybody knows this, right? But I also know that everybody doesn't know this. So if there's something that you as a potential client or one of my clients doesn't understand that I've tried to explain to you, it's on me. I'm the one who don't manage to explain it well enough. So I always welcome the questions, because that means that, one, I'll also learn how to explain something better, hopefully. But two, I'm being made aware that I didn't explain myself well enough. And three, I actually have the opportunity to make sure that you understood what I was trying to tell you in a way that is useful. Because whether it's from me to a client, if my clients don't understand what I'm teaching, then they're not getting value for what they're paying me for, right? Which is a no go. But also in a work setting, that if you don't ask questions and there's something you don't know, then you might actually make very, very costly mistakes. So we would rather have you ask those questions so that we can help you understand it correctly. So we can kind of figure out together, what information is it that you're missing? How can we help you gain that information so that the job can be done well, right? So the whole thing about like speaking up and being helpful as well, and like, for example, you might have X amount of tasks that day, and then depending on how your work is set up, some people are in a workplace where it's like, well, you have these amount of tasks and you have this amount of time to do it, and if you don't have any more tasks to do, then that's fine, then you just spend your time as you want. But in a lot of companies, it would be like, please let me know when you're done. And so it's on you to go and say, hey, I finished, is what's the next thing I can do? Or even take initiative if you know there's something that needs to be done and you have the competencies to do it, then actually start like doing it as well. I hope that makes sense. And the last thing, I already mentioned it in the beginning, but the whole name thing, and I think this is super important, that know that we go by first name basis. So when you write an email, I hate getting emails where it's like, hey, Mrs. Nostrom. It's like, no, just freaking call me Diana. Because that's my name. It's like, and it's not that I don't like my name. I love my last name. I married into that last name and I freaking love it, right? But it's just not the way we really approach each other in the Danish culture. There can be areas where, in terms of the job search or in general, that it can be good to be aware of this, because, for example, in Copenhagen, capital of Denmark, about 20% of everyone in Copenhagen are international. And there might be people who are here having a job who are from the same culture as you, or from a different culture where they would actually be, where they would like being called their last name by their last name and being like approached in that way. That's on you to do that research. But in general, people also know if they're in Denmark, then we're playing by Danish rules, right? And then Danish like structure and like. So I hope this makes makes sense. So basically, call people by their first name. Okay, let me see if there's any questions in the comments. If you have any questions, please jump in the comments and ask them. And if you're watching this on a replay, feel free to drop them in the comments afterwards. So then I will go in and answer them there. So let's see, Hi Rasmus, there's a name there. I have no idea what it is because it's written in, I think, Arabic, something I don't know what's called. Odney, hello. The third person, probably, I don't know. It's over, ma'am. I tried for 2 years, but didn't get. Okay, I'm not quite sure what you didn't get. For fresher jobs requirements like 15 years of experience. Okay, so another thing in terms of the flat structure here, calling people ma'am and sir, no, not a thing either. Like, I feel so old when you call me ma'am, and I'm sorry, I know I'm 42. In some people's perspective, I'm old, and that's quite okay, but please don't call me ma'am. It's not like, again, Diana is fine. It's, and I know that in a lot of cultures, it's a sign of respect. And it's not that like I'm not gonna not answer you if you call me ma'am, but I'm just also like, I don't really like it personally. And again, it's not something that is common to do in Danish culture. So just like use people's first names. If you have any idea what it is, then do that. And I'm guessing you can see, I don't even remember, but I think you'd be able to see that my channel name here is Career Consultant Diana. So in that sense, you would already have my name, right? If it shows the entire thing on the screen. So just like using people's first name, that's the best thing you can do. For a fresher job, requirements like 15 years of experience. I don't know if that's a question, or I don't quite understand what you're saying here. But I do want to say, if you guys feel like if you're at an academic level, so if you have a bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD, postdoc, where you're at in your experience and job search, and you're looking for a job in Denmark, whether you're in Denmark yet or not, feel free to book a discovery call with me to have a chat and see if I can help you out, because maybe I can. If I can't, maybe I can show you in the direction of someone who can. So let's have a chat. When you go into my YouTube channel, there's a link there for booking these sessions. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments to this video. That is it for today. Oh, I forgot, not quite, because I want to tell you what tomorrow's theme is. So tomorrow I'm going to talk about how to prep for your job interviews. That's going to be exciting. And that is one of the themes that I definitely have a lot of clients I'm helping with, like prepping and doing mock interviews and stuff. So tomorrow in my live, I will dive into what you can do in terms of prepping, the best way to prep for your job interview, basically. I think it's going to be around 4 or 5, same time, maybe in the evening. I'm not quite sure, but put on notifications. You'll get notified when I jump online tomorrow as well. And have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.